China is possibly the most contentious country within the modern economic space. From being incredibly poor over 30 years ago to now been being seen as an incredibly big superpower within the economic markets. This is incredibly stark change, and it also speaks to an incredibly large and rapid growth in the Chinese economy within, as said, the past 30 years. Post the Cultural Revolution and essentially the Tiananmen Square massacre, China was poor. No, if you were to talk to other people in that time, China was incredibly poor. It was known as a poor country. Its economy had stagnated. They did not have the economy needed to support its population. But now we see today where it is known as an incredibly rich economy, where an incredibly rich country, where people are now trying to break into the markets in China. We see now many big businesses are trying to break into the Chinese market to advertise towards the Chinese people, because now they see them as a viable market who are able to purchase their products. And that's incredibly interesting because it's only 30 years and we've seen this stark change essentially. The question for today is the Chinese government on the right path to revive economic activity? And in all honesty, in what I have to say, I do not think it is. With what we have, with what information we have, we know that a steady increase cannot continue. And with the current economic policies put in with the Chinese government, this steady increase absolutely will not continue. First of all, let's address one point that many bring up in terms of China and its government: the aging population. A majority of the Chinese population is Gen X and baby boomers, as is for the rest of the world too. However, this aging population essentially allowed for China to become the great economy, to achieve the great economy it has today with this export economy, with increasing their GDP through a lot of exports. We see a lot of how, this is made in China, that is made in China. That is due to the large export economy that China is currently running. And that is also due to the large labor force that they have in the form of their baby boomers and Gen X. However, those individuals are now reaching retirement age. They are no longer able to support and be a part of that labor force. And in doing so, China is losing a major part of their economy. Along the same vein, and another example is essentially the one-child policy, or the diminishing population, or essentially the stagnation of the population of China, where people aren't having kids anymore. With the one-child policy, many preferred boys over girls, and now, in a way, they're lacking girls. They're lacking the ability to find girls for these sons to basically marry and have children, and it also comes to the turning point where nowadays the current generations don't really want kids, be it emotional factors, environmental factors. And with that idea, essentially China is losing out on workers, but they do not have enough people to replace those workers with the newer generation. So they cannot maintain that labor force, that export economy that they're currently relying on for their economy. And then what about the businesses within China? China isn't only an export economy. Of course, they have in technological advances. They're a big tech giant. In that idea, we have, of course, the export economy was what created the support system for these big tech giants, for China to begin developing its technological values. And so we see businesses popping up in China, but oftentimes they're slowly moving out. While we had races for 5G, and also China is well known within the space race, trying to get into space to formalize space travel, we do not see that these businesses are continuing to remain within China. One of the richest men in China, Jack Ma, is now in hiding solely because of the mishandling of the Chinese government with its own businesses. The Chinese government is essentially shooting itself in the foot by not allowing its companies and businesses to grow and continue to support support the economy from going from an export-based economy to more innovation-based, to have products to sell and not completely rely on explicitly labor and instead relying on possibly patents or giving out technology. And that is essentially what's going to cripple them. China is has an incredible economy right now. It's one of the richest countries and has excelled immensely in the past 30 years. But as the saying goes, what goes up must come down. And if any basic economics class, when we see an increase, there always comes decreases. So with that idea, China cannot continue this rapid, steady growth. And with the Chinese government not making adjustments, as I said, they're continuing to push this export economy rather than supporting the innovations and technology. They're no longer essentially able to support this growth of economy. So for the question, is the Chinese government on the right path to revive economic activity? No, it is currently not. They only know how to increase rather than maintain in this idea. In such a rapid, steady growth of 30 years, they are basically constantly searching for that steady growth, rather than considering the idea where they need to find a balance, find an equilibrium point. And so, in that vein, because they don't have that idea of an equilibrium point, the idea of how to manage the businesses, manage the population, manage how they should be essentially supporting the population to aid in the fact that, one, they're losing their workers, and two, they're losing just in general, their population is stagnating. So, the Chinese government is not on the right path to revive economic activity. Thank you.